How's it everyone, this is Lolcohol, and in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to understand the various ways that you can juice your maps. When PoE 2 players use the term juice, what they're meaning is increasing the difficulty of their maps by adding more monsters or more content in order to improve the rewards. The point of this video isn't to tell you exactly what to do, it's more to help you understand which tools are available so that you know what you can do to manipulate your maps in a way to get more loot out of them. So the overall idea when it comes to juicing, the more monsters you have in your map, the more items you're going to find. The higher rarity of monsters you get, the better loot they drop. On top of that, the more items you find, the more good items you'll find, and the higher rarity of items you find improves how many good items you'll find. So when it comes to juicing, the overall concept should be more monsters with higher rarity drop more items with higher quality equals better loot. I know that's a lot. I'm going to break it down. But the thing to always remember with juicing is you're increasing the difficulty. So your maps are going to be harder, but you will get more out of them. What I want to do now is introduce you to a theory that's going to help you understand the different ways that you can increase this difficulty and reward. You can almost think of these as levers that you can pull to increase that. In a perfect world, of course, you'll be able to push all these levers up to max in order to get the most amount of loot. But in reality, you're not going to be able to push these all up. So what are these levers that I'm speaking about? I've broken it up into two main sections. Juicing the quantity and quality of the monsters in your map, as well as improving the quantity and quality of the items that they drop. How do we do this? Let's first start with monster quantity. So when I'm talking about monster quantity, I'm talking about things like increased pack size. Other things would include adding additional content to your map. So if I were to do something like add an Abyss tablet to my map, which I'll get into more later, that's adding a mechanic or content to that map, which equals more monsters, which equals more loot. There's also things like increased number of rare monsters spawned when a breach stabilizes. That is a tablet modifier that's inserting additional rare monsters into your map. I will go into where these sources of like pack size, additional content, all of that come into, but I'm trying to just get this concept down. So we have monster quantity, but we also have monster quality. This is having more magic and rare monsters and even unique monsters in your map means that they will drop better loot. How do we do this? There's a few ways. Firstly, the level of the area, the map that you're in, increased number of magic monsters or increased number of rare monsters. You can get this on a prefix on a Waystone, for example, percent increased monster rarity, and increased monster modifiers. That's improving the quality of the monster. So when I say that, it's like you don't only have monsters in your map, but you have more good monsters that drop better stuff. But now the other side of it is when you kill these monsters, you can affect what kinds of items they drop. So again, we're breaking it down into quantity and quality. First thing is item quantity. When you kill a monster, it will drop a certain number of items, but you can also increase the quantity of the items that it drops. A big one for this is going to be monster effectiveness. What monster effectiveness is for every 2% increased effectiveness, monsters gain 2% more toughness, which makes them tankier. They grant 1% more experience, and they also get 1% more quantity of items dropped. So that's a big source of item quantity. But then there's another one, which is item quality. This is things like item rarity, which you can get on Waystones, tablets, various other sources. Item rarity from players. So when you get a modifier like increased rarity of items found, this is improving the quality of the items that drop. But then there's also things like additional monster modifiers. For each additional modifier that a monster has, it gets 100% increased item rarity of the items that it drops. So this is the overarching concept. But let's break it down further from there. Where do we get all of these things? Cool, it's good to know I should get more monsters that drop better stuff. How do I do that? So the first thing is going to be your Waystones. Waystones have a tier. They go from tier 1 up to tier 15, but they can be corrupted to get to tier 16. The question then is, why would I want to run a tier 15 map when a tier 1 map is much easier? Higher tier maps spawn more monsters with higher difficulty. Another thing is that higher tier maps can drop items with higher item levels. Higher item levels are able to spawn better higher tier modifiers. For example, looking at this crossbow that I have here, this has tier 1 lightning damage on it. This is a modifier that can only spawn on any crossbow or weapon that is item level 81 and above. So if you're running a level 75 area, you're never going to find a weapon base that is able to roll the best modifiers. Now I'm going to get into the Atlas tree a bit later, but another reason you want to run higher tier maps is that a lot of these points on the Atlas tree only apply to area levels above a certain level. So for example, these earlier points apply to all maps, whereas once we get here, these only apply to level 70 plus areas. And then once we get up here, these only apply to level 75 plus areas. So those are a number of reasons why you want to run your map tier higher. But like most items in Path of Exile, Waystones or maps, I'll often use those terms interchangeably. These can have different rarities, all the way from normal rarity with no modifiers, magic with 2 modifiers, or rare with 6 modifiers, and they can even be corrupted to have 8 modifiers. So why would you want to run more modifiers on your maps? It's just making them harder. What's the upside? The thing with all map modifiers is that, yes, these are downsides, but each modifier comes with an upside. You can see these at the top up here. So increase item rarity. This is what I was speaking about before with item quality. Pack size, this is monster quantity. Monster rarity is monster quality. And every single modifier on a Waystone will also grant Waystone drop chance. So even though these are a lot of downsides, there are a lot of upsides. You're going to be finding more monsters that drop better stuff. So more modifiers on your maps is the first layer of juicing. On a website like PoE 2DB, you can actually see all of these potential Waystone modifiers and their upside and their downside. So for example, monsters deal damage as extra fire. That's the downside, but the upside is monsters have increased effectiveness and more Waystones found in area. And all of these map mods exist. They all have that upside and a downside. But of course, another downside of having a lot of modifiers on your map is this up here, revives available. These maps are going to be tough, even though they give you a lot more stuff. The downside is they're going to be harder, and if you die, can't respawn, can't revive, can't save the map, it's gone. So all of this juicing is a bit of a balancing act between how much can I handle without getting killed and losing everything. So just to remind you, these are the 4 different positives that you can get from Waystone modifiers. We have monster effectiveness, which is item quantity, item rarity, which is item quality, pack size, which is monster quantity, and monster rarity, which is monster quality. Now, there are omens that exist, which can be used to manipulate what kind of modifiers you get on your map. There's an omen of chaotic rarity, quantity, chaotic monsters, and effectiveness. What these do is these prevent any modifier from rolling on the Waystone that grants that modifier. So if I don't want any monster effectiveness on my map, I can use one of these. These can also be combined in order to force only one type of modifier. So let's say I wanted only effectiveness on my map. What I would do is use the 3 other ones. So now my map can't get monster rarity, it can't roll modifiers that grant pack size, it can't grant modifiers that grant item rarity. Then, when I use a Chaos Orb on this, it's going to re-roll the modifiers, only granting ones that grant effectiveness. And you can see that at the top. This now has max 70% increased monster effectiveness. No other modifiers like this one, which is more spread out. The next layer of juicing is going to be tablets. What these do is that they add something to the map For example, Breach will add a breach to the map. Irradiated will increase the area level by +1. You can use these alongside your maps, and when you open them up, these modifiers will be applied to your map on top of the modifiers that the Waystone itself has. Now, another reason you want to roll your Waystones with additional modifiers is that a normal Rarity Waystone cannot be used with any tablets. If you have a magic Waystone, this can be used with a single tablet. Any Waystone with 3 to 5 modifiers can be used with 2 tablets, and any Waystone with 6 or more can be used with 3 tablets. So if you combine this all together, you can see where the juice is. This is a map with 8 modifiers, and it has 3 tablets, which are each giving 4 additional modifiers. This is juicing at its core. So what else do tablets do? Tablets, they add additional content to your maps, which in turn adds additional monsters a lot of the time, but they can also get modifiers on them, which similarly to Waystones, improve all of those 4 vectors that I was speaking about: monster quantity and quality, and item quantity and quality. So for example, something like this, map contains an additional essence, there's more monsters, monsters have increased effectiveness, there's more item quantity, map has increased chance to contain strong boxes, which spawn monsters, increased monster quality and quantity. Another thing is with Delirium, this is adding Delirium to the map. You can see map has increased number of rare monsters, Asmiri spirits, and it also then has specific Delirium modifiers on it as well. All tablets, regardless of their type, have an identical prefix mod pool. If you don't know the term mod pool, I'll link my Crafting for Noobs series that goes over all of those, but whether it's a Breach tablet, these are the prefixes we can get. Abyss tablet, it's the same. Irradiated, it's all the same. All of these prefixes are the same, and these are things that increase those different vectors that I spoke about. Rarity of items, pack size, increased number of magic and rare monsters, and so on. The suffixes, however, part of the tablet mod pool is shared between all tablets. You'll see the few at the top remain the same, but they also have special modifiers that relate to that specific tablet type. For example, an Abyss tablet has things that make your Abysses harder but more rewarding. Your Breach one, same thing, harder but more rewarding. And then your Irradiated tablets, these have a more limited mod pool, but these share the same mod pool that all other tablets do. So you can see over here, one of these shared suffixes that you can get on tablets is map has 1 to 2 additional random modifiers. Now you should understand why this is so strong. If you were to use 3 tablets that each grant 2 additional random modifiers, you're getting a whole lot of extra either rarity, pack size, monster rarity, or monster effectiveness. It's making your maps harder, but you're getting way more out of them. That's why these modifiers tend to be quite expensive on tablets. So if we were to look at some tablets like this, you might look at this and say, a 62 divine tablet, why is this so valuable? But if we look at the modifiers, it should make sense now. Increased effectiveness of rare breach monsters in your map. So your rare breach monsters are going to drop a greater number of items. Monsters have increased effectiveness. There's further item quantity. Map has increased number of rare monsters, more monsters of a higher quality. Unstable breaches in map spawn 3 additional rare monsters. So this is more monsters of higher quality dropping an increased quantity of items. It's everything that you want. But like I said before, not only are these adding these additional modifiers to your maps, you can think of these as like a secondary layer of Waystone modifiers, but it's adding additional content to your maps. So by simply just adding Abyss to your map, or Breach, or Delirium, you're adding more monsters. More monsters means more loot, and often specialized drops that can only relate to that league mechanic. On a base level, this is great, but this is where more specific farming strategies come in. Delirium, for example, is an extremely popular juicing mechanic because of the deliriousness mechanic. Not only does Delirium add additional monsters to your map, but the deeper you travel into the fog, the more difficult the monsters become, but they also have improved item drops. Because this doesn't really take up space in your map in the same way that an Abyss or a Breach would, and it applies to most of your map, this is why Delirium is so incredibly popular with high-end juicing mechanics. Almost all high-end game farming strategies are going to employ Delirium, unfortunately. Another reason that Delirium is so good is that you're able to spread it across your atlas with tools like Grand Mirrors. Not going to get into that right now, but this doesn't even take up a tablet slot, and you're getting this effect of Delirious, which you can see. Monster item drops are improved by higher Delirium. So at 200% Delirious, monsters are going to be harder, but their drops are going to be better. Now, tablets can also be crafted. Initially, they can only be magic with one prefix and one suffix, but with this point on your tree, reverse transcription, and up here, partial translation, your tablets can be upgraded to rare with 2 additional modifiers. This isn't a guide on how to unlock this. I do have written guides on this that I'll link in the description if you're interested in how to get all these points. But if you're wondering how I have rare tablets, it's because of this. Let's move on to the third layer of juicing. That is our Atlas tree. This full Atlas tree applies to all maps so long as they are the right area level, and all of these add up tremendously. Increased rarity of items, item quality. There's also things like chance for additional monster modifiers, which each monster modifier grants 100% increased rarity of items dropped. For the most part, this tree is locked in. All of these points can be acquired, but there are some multi-choice options, something like Nemesis Rising. With this, you can change it to whatever you feel like. So here we have effectiveness of rare monsters, item quantity. Rare monster have an increased chance of monster modifiers, effectively item rarity. Rare monster packs have a 50% increased chance of an additional rare monster, monster quantity, and 10% increased rarity of items dropped by rare monsters. Here you can choose what you want. But now each league mechanic additionally has its own passive tree. Again, I have written guides on how to get these, but these further improve it. So more pits means more monsters, chance to get overrun by the Abyssal for more Abyss. Then there's things like this, increased chance to find Abyssal items, Abyssal Eyes, Omens, Lineage Support, Sprawling Rupture for increased number of monsters. You can see how all of these fit into those different buckets that I described before. So if you combine your Atlas tree with your tablets and your rare maps, you can start seeing where all this juice is coming from. There's another layer of juicing that was recently added in Path of Exile 2 0.5, which are the masters. These are masters that you can unlock in the endgame, and all of these points, 4 of which can be allocated per master at a time, these grant additional juice on top of it. So you can see right here, effectiveness, chance for additional monster modifiers, increased rarity of monsters per explicit modifier on the map. Over here, we have increased effect of prefix modifiers or suffixes. So that's going to make those modifiers stronger and harder, but it's also going to increase the good side that it gives. There's also additional layers that you can find here and on the Atlas. Things like cleansed. Cleansed areas also contain additional monsters that can drop special items. Same with corrupted. Even though this seems overwhelming, all of these things fit into those 4 boxes that I described of monster and item quantity and quality. But now there's one other major point of juicing that I haven't touched on so far, which is player rarity. This is things like over here. This ring has a large amount of increased rarity of items found on it. The big question people always have is, how much item rarity do I need? The going theory currently is that about 100 to 150% increased rarity is the most you'll ever need. After that, you're going to be getting huge diminishing returns, meaning that those extra bits of rarity aren't going to be that impactful. I did a little bit of testing myself. It wasn't overly scientific, but what I did was I had a character with 0% player rarity, and I ran all my tablets and waystones with modifiers that granted increased rarity of items found. Then I did a test where I put 100% rarity on my character, and I rolled all my waystones and my tablets with increased monster effectiveness. Higher quantity of items, but not as good quality. What I found was that I had fairly similar results. My gut feeling though, from the little bit of testing I've done, is that if you have lower player rarity, like if you have no increased rarity of items found on your gear, it's going to be more impactful if your Waystones have modifiers like increased item rarity or your tablets have increased item rarity. If your player has a good amount of rarity, which you can see by going to your skills and then clicking a skill, going to the bottom, you can see I have 100% increased rarity, then effectiveness is generally going to be more impactful because you're already solving the item quality thing over here. So by getting increased effectiveness, you're getting increased item quantity, so you're finding more, better items. So the last question that I'm sure you're asking at this point is, how much of each of these do I need? I know that I need item quantity, quality, monster quantity, and quality. How much do I need? I know this isn't going to be the most satisfying answer, but this is what Path of Exile 2 is all about. It's about experimenting, testing, trying things, and seeing what works. Generally speaking though, let's say you have 100% increased rarity on your character, then you're going to generally tend to prefer high effectiveness and high pack size with modifiers that grant additional map modifiers which improve their overall drops within maps. But there's some strategies that are quite different where you're not farming divines or exceptional bases. You might be farming tablets, which as you can see, can be quite valuable. The modifier Waystone drop chance seems to also improve the chance to find tablets. So if you're looking for a lot of tablets, you might start prioritizing Waystone drop chance on your Waystones and your tablets. And then if you think, I want to find more tablets, what do I do? Well, I could put more monsters in my map. I could improve their effectiveness so that they're dropping a higher quantity of tablets. So if I focus on those things, Waystone drop chance, effectiveness, and also just having a lot of monsters in my map, that means I'm going to find more tablets. There might be another strategy where instead of, again, farming divines, you might be farming a lot of Delirium splinters, which drop from Delirium monsters in maps, especially rare and unique Delirium monsters. So you might say, I want to have a lot more rare monsters. I want to get a Delirium tablet modifier that drops increased number of splinters. So you can see, all right, more rare monsters, increased effectiveness so that I get more splinters, and I want to have a Waystone with increased effectiveness and increased monster rarity. Again, the point of this video isn't to tell you exactly what to do. I'm not going to say this is the best, always do this, because it depends. What I recommend though, for new players, go out and follow some strategies. Find a strategy from a player. Check out someone like Dead Rabbit or Miso Shiro. They often test out various strategies. So try what they're doing, but follow along and try to identify the different scaling methods that they're using. So if they say, get your tablets with increased effectiveness, you'll know, all right, that means increased quantity of items. Maybe try one different strategy for each mechanic. Run a ritual strategy, see what kind of modifiers are recommended, not only on your Waystones, but your tablets and your passive tree. Do a breach strategy, run an abyss strategy, all of these. And I think if you were to run one strategy, just follow it from a content creator, this would probably all make a whole lot more sense, and then you can start getting experimental. Another thing you can also do is, if you're testing a strategy from a creator, if you notice something like, hey, wouldn't it be better if I did this instead of that? Give it a try and see what happens. Maybe they are recommending a lot of monster rarity, but you think, what if I just went for instead a lot of effectiveness instead? See what happens. So I hope this video was helpful. Now you know the different tools that you have at your disposal, and now hopefully you should understand why juicing is the way that it is and how to juice yourself. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Catch you in the next one, and bye-bye.